this is a very tricky thing when you're first starting in Maya, because you have, let's actually do this here. I'm going to create a cube, and I'm going to create a, let's do a cone just for the sake of variety. So we've got these two objects here, and we want to connect them together. The two main ways that you have it in animation to connect objects together are parenting or constraining. Now, parenting, like we talked about before, is hierarchy based. So you select the child, then the parent, the object that follows, then the object that leads. The way you can remember this is a good parent will always put their child first. So you select the child first. So child, then parent, edit, parent, or hit P. And that places the child into the hierarchy of the parent right there. Okay. Constraining. The way constraining works is that it is not hierarchy based, it is node based. And if we go to constraining, the very first thing we see is parent, which is very confusing for a lot of new people, because isn't that the same tool? If you go to edit parent and then constrain parent, and Sir Wade, hey, it's been a while. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Oh, we need to chat again sometime. Some amazing way to remember the selection order. That's the way I was taught it, which was 3D Buzz. If anyone remembers 3D Buzz, it was this website. They gave DVDs. This is how old it was. They gave you a DVD that you ordered online, and you'd play the DVD, and it would have all these Maya tutorials on it. And that's where I learned that. It was a good parent always puts their child first, and then with constraining, this was a master and follower setup. So you have the master, the object that leads, and then the follower, the object that follows. Who will the master put first? Well, they're the master. They're the one in charge. They'll put themselves first. So yeah, you have those two ways of kind of remembering it. But I always love the parent one most. And for anyone who doesn't know, because I know a few people are new to Twitch on here, for anyone who doesn't know, check out Sir Wade. His links are down below. He has a YouTube channel. He's also got an awesome Twitch channel. Check both out. Subscribe to both, or follow. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Twitch. It is worth your time. There's so much great stuff on there, especially if you want to learn about more constraint stuff or rendering stuff or just animation things. Really good content there, so check that out. Now, going back to the original topic before I get derailed completely again, we go in here and we have constrain parent and we have edit parent. They're the same thing. Why are they called the same thing? Well, the reason it's called the same thing is because a constraint parent is a constraint that is mimicking what parenting does. It is trying to recreate the same setup. And I can prove this in just a little bit, but let's just go and see what actually constraining does. So with constraining, once again, it's a master follower. So the master goes first, select the object that leads, then the object that follows, constrain parent, and you'll see that the hierarchy stays the same. These objects are separate. But what gets added is the constraint node, which is basically a little bit of math that goes, hey, this object, P cone, you are following that object over there, you're connected to it. And you can see the attributes turn blue. Those attributes are now connected to the original source. Now they follow along, all great. There you go. So you've got these two setups. Now, why can't they just name a parent constraint something else, something unique? Well, like I said earlier, a parent constraint is mimicking the relationship of parenting. And to kind of prove that, let's do a new setup here. So I'm going to create polygon, or let's see, P cube, and let's do a cylinder. We don't use cylinders enough. Okay, so we're going to take this, and then I'm going to duplicate these, like so. Okay, so up here we're going to have our parent, And then we're going to have our child. We're going to have our master. And then our follower. Make sure I spell that right. And then let's call this master parent. And then follower parent. So this is going to be the parent constraint. Okay, so we've got all of these different setups. Let's set them up. So the first one, the parent and child. Select the child first, then the parent. Hit P. There we go. Next one, this is going to be a constraint setup. Well, actually, let's do the last one because it's going to be a good way to show this. So it's going to be a parent constraint, parent or the master first, then the follower, constrain parent. Now, if you notice what's happening with the constraint, what it's doing is it's constraining the translates and the rotates. All of those attributes are being connected. Well, the old way of constraining was you had to do those separately. So when you constrain things, you would have to use a point constraint, which connects translations. So right there, you can see the followers' translations are constrained. And then you would add in a orient constraint. Now the rotations are constrained. This is the old way. So imagine we don't have parent constraining it. You have to add these two in there. Same thing. If we look at these, all constrained. Yay. So if we take all of these now, move them around, they all move, great, perfect. But if we rotate them, notice something going on there with that middle one, the point and orient constraint. They're not maintaining their positional information. It's matching the rotations, but it's not translating it to keep it in line with the original cube. That is why a parent constraint is called a parent constraint, because it's mimicking exactly what parenting does. It keeps that relational information between the two objects, whereas a regular constraint is just matching these two rotations, but not keeping the relationship in space. So it is mimicking it, but it doesn't mimic it perfectly. So if you actually scale these, you'll notice that with the parent constraint, it doesn't scale the cylinder here. If we wanted to match exactly, we could actually add a scale constraint. So I could go in here, constrain, let's add a scale constraint, and there we go. Done. So that's the reason for the naming. So you could say a parent constraint is parenting, but without changing the hierarchy. It's constraining that mimics parenting. It's not really parenting, because parenting also has other benefits. So for example, with parenting, I could take this cylinder and move it over here. But if I take any of my constrained objects and move those, you'll see that this one snaps and then the other one just kind of sits there on its own, doing its own thing. So there are differences. They're very separate things that just mimic an element of it. The other thing with constraining is that you can turn them on and off, which is really nice. What else? The other thing with parenting, because you have the ability to animate the child, with parenting you have to be very careful of what's called a double transformation. Let me reset the positions here. So double transformation is when an object is being told to move twice. So for example, if I take this cube here and move it, that moves the cube, and then the child, the cylinder, goes, oh, okay, the cube moved so many units, I'm gonna move that too. If I move just the cylinder, boop, it moves on its own. If I click and drag and accidentally select both of them, look what happens. See how that cylinder is now moving twice as fast? because it's being told to move twice. I have it selected, which means that I'm telling it to move, and I'm selecting the cube, which it means I move the cube, which then tells, hey cylinder, you should move this amount of space as well. It's being told to move twice. And for every level, you'll get more and more translation or rotation or anything like that. You have to be very careful of this when you're using parenting. With constraining, because the constrained object doesn't move, if I click and drag, it's fine. This is why you'll see constraining and constraint type setups on rigs a lot of the time, so that when you select multiple controls, you're not getting this weird double transformation that's going to start tearing your rig apart. It can still happen, but oftentimes you're going to have this type of setup, which is very nice. The other thing that me personally I like is when you have a control on a rig. So let's say we come back to our rig here. If I select the head control, look what lights up. Just the head control, nothing else. That's good because now I can pose the head and it works great. So if you have a constrained object, you select the lead object, the child, the one that follows, doesn't get highlighted. It's just there on its own. With parenting, if you select the parent, the children get selected and highlighted as well. Which for me, when I create my own like props and rigs, I hate this. I hate selecting one control and then the whole prop turns green and you see all of the just the lines and the edges. It's like, no, I just want to select the control and that's it. So when I create my own constraints, or sorry, my own props, I will constrain the hierarchy, or sorry, constrain the geometry to the controls in a way that allows me to just select the control and just have that highlighted. So there are a lot of different things that go into parenting versus constraining. They're very different tools. It's just that parent constraining mimics the relationship between a parent and a child. So, long explanation. I hope that all makes sense. But these are both tools that you're going to be using a lot. As an animator, we use these all the time. So, to catch up with the chat. So the parent chain must be object to locator. So if you're talking about the constraining an object to a joint, what it would be, let's draw it out here. So you'll have your joint here, which is that. You have your locator, and then you'll have your object. We'll put this as a cube. Okay, so what you would do is you would parent the locator to the joint. This is the super base level version. Parent the locator to the joint, and then constrain parent the object to the locator. So it's that way. You wouldn't take the joint and put it to the locator. That would break your rig. So it would be that setup there. See, I was looking forward to your Agora stream conversation. Heard you're on vacation or something. Oh, talking to Sir Wade there. I'm not on vacation. I'd never get a vacation. Gosh darn it. One day I will have a vacation. At least I'm getting days off, kind of, now. But sir, if you're on a vacation, enjoy it. You deserve it. You do so much work. It's good that you get some time off. Let's see. Okay, so what are some situations where you would use one over the other? So for parent constraining versus parenting, some of the situations you would use are specifically with constraining. It's when an object has to be picked up or let go. That's one of the big ones. Because with parenting, you cannot turn parenting on and off. Think about it this way. Another little thing I learned when I was younger, learning about parenting constraining. Parenting is like real life. You cannot turn it on and off. You can't wake up one morning and go, you know, today I don't feel like being a parent. Children, you're on your own. I'm a bachelor again. Whee! And go off and then come back the next day. Hey kids, who wants to go out for ice cream? I'm your father again. It doesn't work that way. Technically you could, but that makes you a bad parent. It's on or it's off. This one or the other. So here, if I have this object animated and it's following along, the cylinder is coming along with it, I can't turn that off midway so that it lets go and leaves it alone. It's always going to be attached. If I want to let it go, I would have to unparent it. What that'll do is make it so that it never was connected to begin with. So any animation that I did beforehand is now gone. So it's on or off, no in between, no switching. Constraining is a lock and key. It can be unlocked at any point and then relocked at any point. You just have to turn on the switch. So if you have to have a character pick something up or let it go, constraining works great there. The other thing, the other big, like, why would I use one over the other, is with a rig. A parent situation is a hierarchy-based situation. It takes one control or one object and puts it into the hierarchy of another. Now, imagine this with a rig. If I go into a rig here and I select his IK wrist here, his IK wrist isn't just a control that's sitting in empty space that's not connected to anything. It is a control that is already in a hierarchy. I can prove this just by going to the outliner and finding it. There's the IK wrist control right here, and it's in all of this hierarchy right there. If I was to parent this control, so let's say I want to attach it to the sword that we had in the previous example, connect it to the sword, I parented it, that would take that hand control, tear it out of the hierarchy of the rig, and place it onto the sword. That would be like trying to hold on to this pen by taking out my skeleton and throwing it at the pen. Does that sound like it would be pleasant? No. And worse, it's very hard to undo that. Just like in here, if I was to accidentally break my rig in that way, hitting undo sometimes won't fix the issue. It's going to break so badly that even undos can't undo it. We can't do that. We don't want to rip out someone's skeleton just to get them to hold on to something. So instead, you would use constraining, because constraining just adds an extra little bit of code. It's just a little node that goes, hey, you're following this now. That's it. So whenever you're using a rig or like a very complex prop, like we're just using simple geometry here, but if you had a prop that had, like, let's say it's a sword, but it's got a control ring around here and then an offset control, and it's all got this cool stuff, you can't just parent the geometry of the sword to the hand or to anything else, because that would break up your prop. You need to use constraints. So anytime you use a complex object, you want to constrain it. So there's different moments. For me, I almost never use straight parenting. I almost exclusively use constraining with a locator. And I almost never use just straight constraining either. It's always going to be the mixture of the two.